All right. One thing I forgot to do is hit record. And so I'm going to kind of talk my way out of this a little bit. We are working on the lab file right now. Um, and I will return to the code screen. So don't get in a panic, folks. So you guys have a little task to complete anyhow. But let's read through this and see what the difference is with this one. This says Module 6 Lab. It says modify the try it program. And that's the one we're doing the ingredient list. And we were just doing that in the lecture. And we want to modify that to also have a recipe name, which is a string. The user should be able to enter one recipe with multiple ingredients. And I'm going to show you guys how to do that. And this is where we get clever because we're going to create a list of recipes that contains lists of ingredients. So we kind of go down this like rabbit hole here a little bit. It says when the user is done, the program should print out all data collected about the single recipe. So the first thing you'd be asked is ask the recipe or enter the recipe name, enter the ingredients, etc., and the quantities that you need. And then when you're all done, you complete the process and it reads it all back to the screen and displays it nicely. Okay, so that's kind of the objective. Over in Visual Studio, what I advised everybody to do is to create a new project, right? So we did that. And so we have a empty program class right now. And then we created a new class file within here where we copied the code from our try it out and then created a new class file for the ingredients. So this is the ingredient file. I'll just leave it there for a second, right? And then the remaining pieces. Now, I did share that code in the chat with all the students here in the session. But once again, if you need to see it again, there's the class declaration, two constructors, well, actually three constructors. This one is a little overachieving. We're not going to even use it, but it's there. And then three get methods to return the information. Right. So that's just kind of the lay of the land here, just so you have a basis for comparison. Now, the other thing that we're asked to do, and this is where, we kind of go a little bit deeper, right? Because we're asked to also, we have our program that we created before, and we're going to kind of leave that alone. I'm going to borrow some stuff from it, mind you, but we're also asked to create a recipe, and this is where we're going to add one more class file to the project. So instead of having one class file, we're going to have two. Right? So I want you to watch what we're going to do here is over here in the Solution Explorer, I'm going to right click on the project and then choose add another class. And this one I'm going to name recipe with a capital R. Adding that to the project. Now, to build the recipe, we're going to add a couple of data fields. Okay, one thing that we were told to add was a name. So I'm going to add a data field for the name. And really, I should probably have my question mark there, which gets rid of the underline. The other data field that we're going to have is, if you remember from the original program that we wrote, and I'm trying to find it now, of course. Yeah, I cannot even find it. Anyhow, we created a list of ingredients. You guys recall that? And I could create that in the program, but I'm going to create it inside the recipe instead. And this is really kind of a different approach here. So I'm going to create a private, and I'm going to call it the same thing I called before, which is a list of ingredient, right? Because that's the name of the class file, ingredient. And then we will name it in the plural. I'm going to go lowercase on this and call it ingredients. Right. I am not assigning any values to it. This is going to be, at least for the moment, an empty list. And then I'm looking at the red underline. And why is the red underline? Right? It's not finding it in the namespace, even though I see it in the namespace. Did I misspell something?
You misspelled ingredients. Tacky.
Ah, okay. I misspelled ingredients, but it's still not finding that in the same namespace, even though it's right here. Maybe if I change this to public, I don't think that will fix it, but let's save that.
It's not the same namespace, I don't think. Go back and look at the namespace where ingredient is defined.
Ah, and you're right, right. And I think that's because module 6 lab recipe with ingredients. Aha. So, right, because I copied it from a different file. Good call there, Bob. So let's fix the namespace. And then let's check recipe. Module 6 lab recipe with ingredients. Oh, I got to save this though. Save it, see if it fixes it. Yeah, that fixed it. Okay. Very, very good catch. Then let's make sure that our namespace here is the same, which it is. Okay. So now I'm going to create that list of ingredients here, and then we'll give the recipe a name, and that'll just be a string. We'll create a constructor here. And so you guys, that was superfluous. The constructor will look really simple like this. I'm going to give you guys the constructor in the chat just so we're all on the same page. Oh, and once again, I did the same thing I did last time, is I did not put it inside the curly brackets. There we go. It goes right there. So when we construct, we'll send in a name, and then it will create a new ingredient. It'll add a new thing to ingredients. Right, instantiating the new object. Right, this creates the container basically. This actually instantiates. Couple of things that we're going to throw in here, right? And this is going to be a little weird, right? Because normally, if I was going to add an ingredient from the program level, I would capture the information from the user, right? And then I would add it to the ingredient list. Now I'm going to do the capturing of the information in the program like we did before, but I'm going to add it to the list inside the object. So this is kind of interesting. And this one will be the method that I will use for this, right? And I'm just going to call it add ingredient. It's going to receive an ingredient object and add that ingredient to the ingredients list, right? Hard to keep all that syntax straight, by the way. This is my approach. And that's going to modify our external program, but we'll get there one step at a time. The other thing that's going to be handy is eventually we're going to put the recipe name back up on the screen. So I'm just going to do a get name method here. This is a very simple one, right? Once again, I'm in the sake of interest of time efficiency here in the chat. Right. So we have really, so far, this is what our class is going to be. Eventually, we are going to write a method that will print the recipe on the screen, which will give us the final output. And I'm going to use kind of a different approach for doing that. And I'm going to teach you a new class library in the process, right? And it's not a big deal. It's very easy to use, but I'll show you how it works when we get there. But for the moment, let's just build the stub for the method, which I'm going to call, it'll be public. We'll return a string so I can go to the screen, and we're just going to call it print recipe with parens and then we'll put in our curlies. And for right now, we're going to return nothing for the moment, right? But we will eventually return something when we get there. But I just want to have something there so my code's not failing. And then if I run it and I get nothing on the screen, I know I forgot to do it, right? Nothing, go back and fix it is probably what it should say. All right, so this will be our recipe class for now. I'm going to go ahead and save this so that it locks that all in. Now let's go ahead and start writing the main program that's going to utilize these tools. And then once again, we're going to circle back eventually and adjust this, right? And I'm just looking to see if there's anything else here I maybe missed. My problem is I have like 6 different versions of this open on my other screen here. Okay, that's the homework. That's our ingredients. Got our recipe, our program. So I apologize. I'm just making sure that I'm not feeding you guys bad stuff here. Okay, I think I'm good. Okay, this is my old example. So I'm going to get rid of my, see, I have the old example. This is the old program that we were using. So that's the code basically that we had, and then we added the loop in there, right? So this is what we were doing. And I think we can borrow some of this, right? But the flip side is that the lab kind of shows it a different way, right? So it's going to say enter recipe name, and then it wants to say ingredient, NA when done, right? And I didn't do that. So I guess I'm going to use the other version that I have here. So we're going to build it from scratch then, is what I'm concluding. All right, so here in the main method, we are going to start by, instead of doing a list of ingredients, now we're going to do a list of recipes. And it's in the singular, by the way, list recipe. Right? And we'll call that recipes, and the autocomplete is perfect. So now I want you to conceive this, right? So before we had a list of ingredients, now I have a list of recipes. And if I look at the recipe files, the recipes each include a list of ingredients. So when I go into a recipe, that includes a list of ingredients. But if you think about it conceptually, once again, this is a data abstraction thing. When you think of a recipe, recipes have multiple ingredients, and ingredients have multiple details about them. So that's really a very good analogy, I think, in terms of the abstraction level of it all. The other thing that we're going to do is we are going to prompt the user for an ingredient, a quantity, and a measure, right? And isn't that how they put it in the lab? Ingredient, quantity, and measurement. All right. And I'm going to just basically copy the approach I used before, which is I'm going to create these variables up here at the top, and then I will populate them down below, but I want them to be preset with a value, right? Granted, a blank string, 0, and a measure, which is a blank string, all preset. The previous time we wrote this, I used the while loop, and then I checked the condition at the top, right? But in order for that to work, you often have to make sure that you prompt again inside the loop. I'm going to do what we did last week. I'm going to flip it. I'm going to do a do while loop as opposed to a while loop. So I'm going to start with the keyword do. We'll put in our curlies, and then I'm already indented, but I'm going to go ahead and put in the first prompt, which is not for ingredients, but to enter the recipe name. Now, I do have to come up with the closing condition. That's why it's yelling at me down here. And ultimately what I'm going to say, I'm going to close out the logic just so you guys can see it. And I'm going to do it right here. This is kind of like a little bit backwards. I'm kind of completing my loop before I write my loop, right? Because I'm at the end of it, I'm going to say, enter another recipe, right? So I'm going to allow them to do more than one recipe. And then to get out of the loop, this will be my condition. And so, right, so I'm going to ask for a yes, no, and then I'm going to read that. And I want you to notice, I can put that yes, no right in the condition, right? So I'm going to check the condition. I'm going to read it in from the keyboard, convert it to uppercase just in case they type lowercase, and I got the square bracket 0 just in case they type more characters than we need, right? You guys remember all that stuff? And I'm looking for yes, right? So we're going to keep, if they say yes, we're going to let them put in another recipe. Otherwise, we'll exit. This is kind of a added wrinkle to the program. I guess we don't really need to do, but I decided to do it. All right, so going back up here, we put in a prompt to ask for the recipe name. We're going to read it in and then store it. And notice that we're instantiating a new recipe object here, right? Called recipe. Then here, I want you to think about this. Now I'm going to start to ask them for ingredients. And that could be a repetitive process too. So I could use the while loop I had before, or actually I'm going to do the do while approach one more time. And I think this is kind of good just to practice this loop style that we don't usually do. And I'm going to prompt them for the first ingredient. And so I'm going to say this. I'm going to say ingredient, NA when done, which is like the example that we have in the lab. Right. And yes, I realize this is yelling at me, but I will resolve it. And, maybe, I guess temporarily what I'll do is I'll say while true, just to make it be quiet and put in my semicolon. Okay. I need to fix it. So I just so I don't forget to fix it, need to adjust. Right. Because otherwise what happens is you forget to adjust it and you're like, why does my loop stop? Because you set it to true to run forever. Right. All right. So now once I have the ingredient in, I need to check to see if they typed NA. Right. This is a new wrinkle. Right. So if they type NA, I need to get out of here, basically. So I'm going to say, well, actually, let's think about this. Okay, if they type NA, I'm not going to ask them for the quantity or the measure, right? So I want to go reverse logic here. So I'll say if the ingredient converted to uppercase, so I'm going to go to upper, right? Just to make sure they don't type NA lowercase, does not equal NA. Then we'll add our curlies. And then we'll do the other prompts. And so what am I missing? Oh, I'm missing the parenthesis. I'm just like wondering why it's behaving so weird. But there you go. That's the why. All right. All right. So if they put it in correctly, or they want to keep entering the ingredients, then I will do my prompts and then I'll capture these pieces of information. So here's that. And once again, I'm going to try to help you guys with your typing here. Right. And if you guys are exactly mimicking what I'm doing, here's the whole do while structure so far. So instead of racing to catch up, now you can just add a couple lines. Right inside the if statement, if they add the new ingredients, now we want to add that to the ingredient. Now I want to like take your memory back to here where I threw in it's in the recipe class where I had the add ingredient method, right? So we're going to trigger that one, which adds it to the ingredients list. So here I'm going to say recipe dot add ingredient, and then inside here I'm going to add the new ingredient with the variables that I just captured from the user. So it's brute force being added to the list, just like that. And I'll give you guys a second to type that in. All right. So they didn't type NA. We captured the two other pieces of information. We use those pieces of information to add an ingredient using the recipe's add ingredient method that adds it to the ingredient list inside the recipe. Right. And then how do I get out of this loop? Well, this is where I need to adjust, right? Well, we will do this as long as the ingredient, once again, converted to uppercase does not equal NA. Right, so that's what I have to get out. All right. If I've captured the ingredients and I'm done, because it might be a whole list of them, right? We might loop a few times. How many recipes only have one ingredient? Right? Turkey. Take the turkey, throw it in the oven, you're done. One ingredient, right? Even for a turkey, that's not really true. All right. But if we have multiple ingredients, then we will take the recipes, the plural, right? Our list, right? And then we're going to add the recipe that we just grabbed the ingredients for to the recipes list. Then we'll say, enter another recipe. And then if they do, then we'll run it. Okay. Really, when you stop and think about this, the extra recipe thing is not really required here. All right, but we have our logic that will take care of most of the work for us right there. The next thing that we're going to want to do is, now that we're done with both of these do while loops, and I'm just going to zoom out a little bit so you can see all of it so far. That might be a helpful view if you're falling behind on your typing and want to just screen capture, basically. When we're done with that do while loop, now we want to output it, right? And I'm going to write a for each loop to do that. So for each recipe that I have, I'm going to want to output the name of the recipe, the ingredients, and make it look all nice. And what I'm going to do inside my for each loop is I'm going to call upon that method that I talked about here that I didn't quite complete yet. Then I'm going to come back and build it now that I'm thinking about it, right? So that's how my brain kind of like solves these problems, by the way. So I'm going to say for each, and precisely. Thank you very much, Visual Studio. Recipe is the data type for recipe and recipes. Boy, that's a little confusing syntax. And then we are missing the closing curly bracket there. So make sure you type that in, right? And then we're going to want to convert this. So, I mean, I could take the recipe and convert it to a string, and in principle, that would kind of work, right? But I don't want to just use this toString method. What I want to do is call my print recipe method from the recipe class, and then I'll output one, and then I'll add a blank line to it. So I'm just going to do a \n. So I'll print out a recipe, blank line, print out a recipe, blank line, etc. So if we only put in one recipe, we get one recipe back. We put in 2 recipes, well, okay, we get 2 recipes back, etc. So now we got to build what this looks like. Print recipe, but basically our main program body, believe it or not, is essentially done. Right, so I'm just going to go ahead and save that one. Now I'm going to go back to the recipe class and I'm going to build this method. And I'm kind of using this as a way to teach you another tool inside C# that we have not lectured on, right? Normally when we're outputting strings, we can take a string and I can, store it as a variable. And then if I want to add stuff to the string, I just, I can like plus equals or, append it to the string or whatever, all the different methods that we can use. But there's this other tool that's built into C# called the string builder, which is a really useful tool that a lot of programmers use, which does basically what I'm talking about. It treats the strings in a way that I can take a snippet of text, add more text to it, keep adding text to it. And then when I want to output it all, I just say, take whatever I did here, convert it to a string just in case there's numbers in there, and put it on the screen. It's already built. And it's like one print statement or one return statement, technically. So this is going to return a string. So I'm not going to remove this for now, but I will change nothing. But I will remind myself to change this, change this. Right. But I'm going to start up here with this new type of object that we're going to work with. So we're going to call string builder. And that's normally what I name mine, is I just, abbreviate it as SB, and then that will conglomerate all the text that I'm grabbing. And what I'm going to do first, what's the first thing that we want to have as output on the screen? Well, how about the recipe name? So I'm just going to say SB, right, the string builder thing I made, and I'm going to say append, and I'm not going to append a line, but I'm just going to say append. What are we appending? The name of the recipe, which is built into this object. I got to type it correctly, right? So we're just going to append the name that's in the object already. So a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, right? So that's added to the text. Then I'm going to run a loop to do the next thing. Because think about this. If I have an ingredient, I'm going to capture the quantity of the ingredient, the measurement, and the name. And then for each ingredient, I'm going to take those ingredients and add them to the recipe text to go back on the screen. But it might be one ingredient. It could be 10 ingredients. I really don't know, right? And so here's how I'm going to do that. It's going to be a for each loop, which is going to operate, basically automatically. And what we're going to loop through is the ingredient, right? And then we'll call it ingredient and ingredients. That's the right syntax, by the way. And then once again, am I missing my closing curly bracket? I sure am. Okay, there it is. Right. And then very intuitively, it tells me to append, and it's trying to put in a comma, but I don't really want to do that. What I want to do is I'm actually going to start with a blank line. I want to put the name up, move down the line. So in the string builder, I'm adding a blank line. I'm just appending it. And then what I can do, and this is kind of an interesting syntax with string builder that it kind of allows you to do this, and I normally will indent like this, is I can keep issuing the append command and then add the stuff I want to add. So for example, if I want to add the ingredient and get the quantity of that ingredient, right? Because if you look at the output in the lab, it's like 2 tablespoons grape jelly. So the quantity comes first. That's why I'm doing it. So I'm getting the quantity first and I'm appending it. And notice there is, okay, and I screwed up here. There's no semicolons in this statement. This is really what's kind of weird about this. And then I'm going to say append again, and then I want to put in a space, right? Because I'm getting the quantity, and then I want a space, and then I want it to say cups or teaspoons, and then a space, and then the ingredient, right? That's kind of the approach. So here I'm just going to put in a space. Oops, keep that there. Sorry about that, folks. And then I'm going to move on to the next line. And now I'm going to append not the name, a good guess, Visual Studio, but I'm going to append the ingredient. Or wait, what did I call it? Get measurement, I think is what it is. There you go. And I like to have them touch, but hey, that's me. It's trying to stop it, but I'm still appending. And now I'm not going to append a new line. I'm going to append another space. And then I'm going to get the name. So then I'm going to say dot append. Okay, so once again, it threw in the semicolon I didn't want. So that's part of the problem with autocomplete sometimes. And now I'm going to do ingredient dot get name. Parentheses, now the semicolon. All right, so there's all the syntax for that, folks. Right. Then at the bottom here, the return statement is going to be actually pretty simple. What am I going to return? Well, I'm going to take the string builder that I just put together, adding all these strings to this thing, and then I'm going to push it back to the string or back to the screen. So I have to make sure that it's a string. So I'm just going to use toString with parentheses. And then that will send it back, right? So I'm going to save this. That'll send all of what I just built here back to this spot right here, and it'll put it on the screen. I'll put that up on the screen for just a little moment longer. And I'm going to do you guys the solid here, right? This is being in the holiday spirit, I guess. Just in case you messed up the code, there's a clean version right there. Now, this is, once again, the string builder is not a thing that we talked about, but I feel compelled to kind of expose you guys to it because it is a tool that people really do use quite a bit. Very, very commonly used tool. A lot of languages have this type of tool. And if you're wondering, like, why do you use it? It's like, well, I could have this, for example, do console write lines directly, but I really don't want this executing code, right? I just want it to build a string, how it's going to go to the screen. I send it back to my program, and the program handles putting it on the screen if it wants or needs to, right? I don't want my class to really be doing that. Right. So back here in the program, then, this is all set to run. So now here comes the fun part, testing it. So let's do it. All right, so here's the run. Enter recipe name, PB and J sandwich. Okay. Ingredient, bread. Quantity, 2. Slices. Next ingredient, peanut butter. Quantity, I don't know how much you would put on yours. I like a lot. So I'll say 2 table. And if you want, you could do the abbreviation TBSPN, tablespoon. Or is it tablespoon? Whatever. What's the next ingredient? Jelly. Equivalent amounts, I think, is appropriate. So we'll do the same thing. All right. Any more ingredients that we need on that thing? Nope. We say NA. Enter another recipe. Sure. How about pancakes? Oh, well, there's the little flaw. It shouldn't have stopped there, right? All right, so I'll put the PB&J sandwich just fine, but it should have went back and asked me to keep making pancakes, basically, or to get the pancake thing. All right, so I said ingredient NA when done. Enter another recipe. Oh, I didn't say yes. You guys pick up on that? I just said pancakes. And that's not a yes or a no. All right, let's try it one more time. Here's the run.
I was gonna say mine's still running. It was
Oh yeah,
fine.
here we go. Let's um control C to stop a running program, by the way, in the console. You didn't know that trick. All right. Recipe name. All right, let's do PB and J again, right? We'll just try to do this faster. 2 slices peanut butter, 2 tablespoons jelly, 2 tablespoons. You notice this time I'm typing it all out because I feel like it can go faster. No more ingredients. Enter another recipe. Now I'm going to answer correctly. Yes. Okay, there we go. Pancakes. Ingredient. Flour. 1 cup. Sugar. 1 tablespoon. What else do you put in there? Baking soda. 1. Actually, it should be 2. All right, too late now. 2 teaspoons. Sugar. 1. I already did that. Oh well. More sugar. 1 cup. There we go. All right. Well, we also need eggs. Right, we got that problem again. I always like to put an extra egg in mine. Measurement egg, right? And NA, let's just call it done. Enter another recipe, no. And then there's my PB&J. There's my pancakes. All right, not too bad, right? Could make it look a little nicer. I can think of like, I could put a little like dashed line in there, extra carriage return right here to make it look better. But it is working. So this is the lab, folks. Complete. All right, let's move on to the assignment. I know that we're super short on time, but I'm going to try to do this in hurry up fashion. And then I realize that most of you will probably have to come back and watch the video to get it. I already have it pre-recorded in previous videos where I don't go quite so fast, so you can always do that too. So I'm going to call this module 6 assignment. We'll use our top level statements here. And let's go look at the instructions. So I'm going to have to forward through our course shell here a couple clicks at a time. All right, so it says create a program to simulate a vending machine. Well, that sounds familiar. It should have a class called item. The item class should have fields that store the name of the item, quantity in the machine, and price per unit. The main program should use a list of items to store the inventory in the vending machine. And at the program start, the user should be able to fill the machine with items to vend. When they're done filling the machine, the program allows the users to purchase from the machine. And when the users are done purchasing, the program should print out the inventory remaining in the vending machine. It should also print the amount of money the machine collected from item sales. Like, wow, this has got a lot going on here, right? It feels like a lot going on. But when you start thinking about this, we're combining all the skills that we've learned so far. And so this is a really nice little program. After your program runs, the console should look similar to the following example. The exact output will vary depending on what the user inputs, right? So items to stock, right? So Snickers, quantity, price, trail mix, quantity, price, and then you type NA and you're done. Then it puts some ASCII art in there, and then the vending machine comes up. It gives you an option, 1 for Snickers, 2 for trail mix, and then item to buy. So you choose the item, right? And then type -1 to end. Right here, they typed NA. Curious. It's like typing pancakes. I wonder how that worked out. And then inventory in the vending machine, when you're all done purchasing, it'll tell you what's left and then how much money was made. All right, kind of a neat little program because there is a little bit of stuff happening here. So let's start first by building our class for item. And I'm going to come over here and do an add. We're going to add a class file, and I'm going to call it item with a capital I. All right. I have some of this pre-built. This one, unfortunately, I'm not going to share in the chat. Sorry, folks, you're going to have to tough through it and type it in yourself. But I'm creating a private for the name, a private string for the name, an int for quantity, and a double for price. And then I have my constructor, which receives all three, and we're going to capture those from the user, right? And then populate the internal fields. Then for each one of these fields, we're going to go ahead and create getters and setters. So for example, for name, we're going to have a get name and a set name. For quantity, we're going to have a get quantity and a set quantity. And then for price, we're going to have a get and a set.
Hey, Takis,
Yes.
why do you need the sets?
You know, Bob, you're making a really good point. We are setting them through the constructor. So you're telling me I don't need the sets because I'm not going to be changing them at any point.
Seems like it.
Yep. Okay. You know, Bob, I'm wondering if the last time I did this, and this is kind of like, I don't want to like blow this little trick, but one little thing that Visual Studio can do for you automatically is if you have a set of data fields in an object, you can also have it generate getters and setters automatically. I'm speculating, Bob, that that's what I did last time. Right. And, you know, by the way, folks, that keeps you from typing all the code. The gets, though, yeah, those all make sense. The other thing that we're going to want to do is I'm going to throw in another method here for just printing out the item that's just going to show the name and the price in currency format. And that's going to take care of like, you know, this basically, that piece there. So this is the item class. I'm saving it. And if you guys are screenshotting, there you go. So you don't have to watch the video. You got 5, 4, 3. Kidding. You guys are like in a panic getting out your snipping tool or whatever screenshot tool you use. Remember, the video will be out there tomorrow, by the way. All right, I'm going to jump over to the main program class now, and let's start building the program itself. And one of the first things I'm going to do is I'm going to build a list of item, right? So a list of item, and I will call it items, and I will follow that syntax precisely. I'm going to set up another variable just to hold the name of what people are typing in from the keyboard up here, and I'm going to call it name, like so. Of course, it doesn't like that, so we put in our question mark. Hopefully, well, it's still going to underline green because I have not set it yet. I'm going to go back to the do while approach. And my only answer for that is that's what I did last time. So I'm just following what I'm doing last time. And so I'm going to start with the do statement. And then ultimately, I'm going to follow the same logic I used for the lab. And I'll exit out of here when somebody types NA, to get out. And is that what we want to do? And I thought I was questioning that. Okay, for the item to stock, NA is appropriate. So we'll stick with that. Okay. So now we'll start with our prompting here. And so I'm going to first do a console read line. What's the item to stock? I'm going to read it in. We're going to follow the same logic we used last time, by the way. So I'm going to do an if statement. And with the if statement, as long as they don't type NA, I'll continue with the rest of the prompts. So I'll grab the quantity, and then I'm going to throw another new technique at you here, which is kind of, and I don't mean to blow your mind with it because we're really short on time. In fact, class is formally done already. But here's another way that I can take information in from the keyboard. I can parse it, and parsing is basically the process of reading something in as text, and then I'm going to basically convert it to an integer in the process, and I can declare what I'm going to push it to. So I can push it into a variable directly this way in quantity, right? And this is kind of a unique technique. I don't have to do it this way, but I thought I would demonstrate just another technique that you guys can add to your arsenal, by the way. And I'm going to do price the same way. Now, what's fascinating about this approach, where are these names coming from? Well, these are actually variables I'm creating right here. So as I hover over them, you notice how it says local variable int quantity. So I'm declaring it right in place. So instead of saying int quantity equals console read line, convert to int 32, right? All that stuff. This is just a different way to do it. I do think it's also a little bit more modern way to do it, which is one of the other reasons I'm showing it to you. Because, when we're teaching you like rudiments, we show you the really basic way, but then you get out into the world and you start doing it and it's like, oh, there's a better way. Okay, this is a little more efficient, is the way that we kind of look at it. Then once we've captured all that info, then we're going to add to the items list a new object with the name, quantity, and price. Name is populated here. Quantity and price are populated here. All right. I like this approach a lot. This is kind of a fun approach and not really hard. Like if you're not comfortable with this approach and you want to go back to like the old-fashioned approach, hey, just do it. Doesn't matter. It'll still work the same to populate things. All right, so that's the if statement. And this while statement here. So I never closed my if statement. So that's why I'm getting all these red underlines. And then that, and this is what we, okay, so I'm breaking all my curly brackets here. That matches that, that matches that. Okay, I don't know, I guess I'm okay. No red underlines, so I guess I'm okay. There we go. All right. Once we're done stocking the machine, then we're supposed to do some ASCII art. So here's the ASCII art. Then we want to put a little thing on the screen to tell people that we're okay. Now we're in the vending machine. So we were stocking at first. Now we're actually in the vending machine. And maybe we do a \n here to add a blank line. And then what we're going to do is we're also going to put in a counter here. And the reason we're going to put in a counter is when we're outputting the products to the screen, you notice how there's a number in front of it. So I want to kind of generate that number in the process here. So here I'm going to create an int. I'm just going to call it count. And I'm going to preset it to 1 because we're going to start by putting 1 on the screen for that list. Now I'm just going to do a for each loop. And precisely the correct syntax, Visual Studio. Very good job. Right. And I'm going to have a for each loop now that's going to iterate through all the items in the list and then put them up on the screen so the user can see what they are. And it's going to be one single statement, which I'm doing like this. So the counter, and then notice I'm doing count plus plus. So the counter as it currently resides as 1 will appear, and then it will increment as soon as the statement's done. So the next time through it'll be 2, etc. And then I'm going to grab the print item output, just to refresh your memory here. That's the name and the price and currency format. And that will, so it'll say 1 space dash space, Snickers space $2.99 or whatever it is. Hopefully it's not that much, because then I wouldn't buy it. $1.50 I can do, maybe $2 even, but not $2.50. All right. Next, we're going to go into another loop, right? Because people now see the list of what they can buy, and now we're going to prompt them to buy their stuff. So I'm going to do a string. Oh, boy, that was a little weird. Not string called input. So we're going to capture that from the user. And yeah, I should probably question mark it. And then we'll do a double. That's going to be called total. That's going to keep track of the total sales, and we'll calculate that every time they do a purchase. Once again, I'm going to do a do while loop. So here's the do. At the end, I'm going to need a while to end it. And my ending statement, by the way, is going to be this NA thing one more time. So I'm just going to put that at the bottom right now. Then I'm going to go into a prompt here at the top. What item do they want to buy? So they're going to type, for example, what are they going to type? They're going to type, 1, 2, whatever. And so we're just going to match that up. And what we're going to do in that process, right? So we're going to capture that input. Then we're going to check the input. So kind of the same technique we're using up here, right? But we're going to be checking the input. And I'm going to say if input dot to upper does not equal, once again, NA, that's the quit, right? Then we'll do the following code. The first thing that we're going to do is this statement. This is kind of a weird one, but I'm going to set an index, right, where I'm going to take the input, convert it to a number, and then subtract 1 from it. Okay, so why? Why am I doing that? Because the index of the list, right, so the first thing in the list is in position 0, but they typed the number 1. So I got to grab that number that they typed at the keyboard, which is a 1, turn it into an integer, and subtract 1 from it. Then it'll give you a Snickers instead of a Skittles, or whatever, right? And I'm only converting it if they don't type NA, right? Because if they type NA, that's a string. I don't want my code to break. That's kind of the why. Then I'm going to throw in this weird statement here, right? It looks weird, but it's actually very logical, where I'm going to find that item at that index position. I'm going to set, okay, so there's the set, why we need the set, Bob. Right, so I'm going to have to add that back. And it's going to set the quantity of that item, where it's going to return the quantity and then subtract 1 from it and set it. So I guess I got to go back and add my set. So there's our answer for why we had at least a set quantity. So I'm going to grab it. Fortunately, I still have it. So I have a get quantity, and then I'm going to add a set quantity here. I'm going to save this. Okay, so that's the Y. And okay, I was waiting for the underline to go away. It just took a moment. All right. And then after we do this, and I just want to kind of reiterate this thing, right? So like the things in the list, and I want to change its quantity in the object, but first I have to get the quantity, subtract one from it, from the same object, and then I'm setting the quantity back to the same object. That's the syntax. Very weird, but that's how it goes. And then, of course, we want to keep track of the total. And the way that we're going to do that is we're just going to plus equals. We're going to pull the price out of that item and add it to the total so we know how much we sold. Right? And then that's really the remainder of the do while loop there. So that's the whole loop. Right. Then we're going to just do a little bit of output. Right. So these I'm just copy pasting. So there's my checkered line again. And then I think a blank line here would probably be smart. And then really all that's left to do is to iterate through the information. So I'm going to do a for each. Once again, the syntax is precisely correct, so I'm hard pressed not to accept it. And in that for each loop, we're just doing one little bit of output here. And what are we going to put on the screen? We're going to take the item quantity that's left and the name. And if you look at the example once again, we're going to say inventory in the vending machine, 9 Snickers, 9 trail mix, and then the total. That's just going to be on a separate line. It doesn't need to be part of the same statement or part of the same loop, right? The products need to loop through, but not the total. Right. So there's the final part of the program, folks. All right. So for screenshotters, there we go. Top part of the program. Right. And now you guys are racing the screenshot, but I'm going to scroll. Remember, you can come back to the video later, so don't panic. Right. And then part 2. See how quick you get with your screenshots and your saves, right? The smart way to do it is you screenshot and paste it into a document. Then you don't have to save anything. And then the bottom part. Right. So I'm going to go ahead and save this. I'm going to hit the run button and let's make sure this works. Right. I'll zoom in a little bit on the console here. So let's start with my favorite M&Ms, quantity 24. Right, you got to have a lot of M&Ms in there. Price each. What's a good price for M&Ms in a vending machine? 175, 150. I don't know what the going rate is these days. 150. Then let's put in I don't know what's what Doritos. 12. We're just going to make everything 150, I think. Item to stock. Give me some candy. Let's do Snickers, fine. Snickers. We'll do 18 of those. Price each. Also 150. What else can you put in a vending machine? Gum. Let's do 8. And maybe those are $2. Kind of a ripoff, if you ask me. Item to stock, I'm just going to type NA. We're out. All right, vending machine. There's my list of products. Item to buy. I'm going to buy some gum, Snickers, Snickers, Doritos, and then M&Ms. Lots of M&Ms. They're my favorite, right? And then on the next one, I'm going to type NA. And then it tells me what's left. And hopefully it jives. But I made $30 just like that. Not too bad. Right? If you want to see the entire console output, I think that's helpful too. So you could scroll back. You know, in principle, see the whole thing. Or close to the whole thing. And then, of course, you could tally these up and make sure your math is right. But folks, that's the completed program. So I'm going to stop the video here.